The years passed by slowly, and my people claimed that I ruled them with wisdom. The heart still hung above my bed, pulsing gently in the night. If there were any who mourned the child, I saw no evidence. She was a thing of terror back then, and they believed themselves well rid of her. Spring fair followed spring fair, 5 of them, each sadder, poorer, shoddier than the one before. Fewer of the forest folk came out of the forest to buy. Those who did seemed subdued and listless. The stall holders stopped nailing their wares to the boards of their stalls, and by the 5th year only a handful of folk came from the forest, a fearful huddle of little hairy men and no one else.
Your Majesty,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
the Lord of the Fair is here, Your Majesty.
Show him in, Jenna. My lord,
Your Majesty.
you asked to see me.
Yes, Majesty. I do not come to you as my queen.
No?
No, Majesty. I come to you because you are wise. When you were a child, you found a strayed foal by staring into a pool of ink. When you were a maiden, you found a lost infant who had wandered far from her mother by staring into that mirror of yours. You know secrets, and you can seek out things hidden. Something is taking the forest folk. Next year there will be no spring fair. The travelers from other kingdoms have grown scarce and few. The folk of the forest are almost gone. Another year like the last, and we shall all starve.
Jenna, bring me my looking glass. It is in the chest in my chamber.
Yes, Majesty.
It was a simple thing, a silver-backed glass disc, which I kept wrapped in a doe skin, safe in the dark.
Here, Majesty.
Is that the one we bought you?
The same. Sometimes I can see things in it. Sometimes it tells me things. Now, quiet. She was 12, and she was no longer a little child. Her skin was still pale, her eyes and hair coal black, her lips blood red. She wore the clothes she had worn when she left the castle for the last time, the blouse, the skirt, although they were much let out, much mended. Over them she wore a leather cloak, and instead of boots, she had leather bags tied with thongs over her tiny feet. She was standing in the forest beside a tree. As I watched, in the eye of my mind, I saw her edge and step and flitter and pad from tree to tree like an animal, a bat or a wolf. She was following someone. He was a monk. He wore a sackcloth, and his feet were bare and scabbed and hard. His beard and tonsure were of a length overgrown, unshaven. She watched him from behind the trees. Eventually, he paused for the night and began to make a fire, laying twigs down, breaking up a robin's nest as kindling. He had a tinderbox in his robe, and he knocked the flint against the steel until the sparks caught the tinder and the fire flamed. There had been 2 eggs in the nest he had found, and these he ate, raw. They cannot have been much of a meal for so big a man.
Yes, that's the thing. Who's there? Is someone there? Hello. My, you're a pretty thing. Come on, pretty thing. Over here. Oh, yes. Such a pretty little thing. Now let's see what you'll do to a man of God for a shiny penny.
She stood up and walked around the fire and waited an arm's length away. He pulled in his robe until he found a coin, a tiny copper penny, and tossed it to her. She caught it and nodded and went to him. He pulled at the rope around his waist, and his robe swung open. His body was as hairy as a bear's. She pushed him back onto the moss. One hand crept, spider-like, through the tangle of his hair until it closed on his manhood. The other hand traced a circle on his left nipple. He closed his eyes and fumbled one huge hand under her skirt. She lowered her mouth to the nipple she had been teasing, her smooth skin white on the furry brown body of him. She sank her teeth deep into his breast. His eyes opened, then they closed again, and she drank. She straddled him, and she fed. As she did so, a thin, blackish liquid began to dribble from between her legs.
Majesty? Do you know what is keeping the travelers from our town? What is happening to the forest people?
Yes, I know.
Is something killing the travelers?
Yes, something is. Go home, my lord. I will take it upon myself to make the forest safe once more. I had to, although she terrified me. I was the queen. A foolish woman would have gone then into the forest and tried to capture the creature, but I had been foolish once and had no wish to be so a second time. I spent time with old books. I spent time with the gypsy women who passed through our country across the mountains to the south rather than cross the forest to the north and the west. I prepared myself and obtained those things I would need, and when the first snows began to fall, then I was ready. Naked I was, and alone in the highest tower of the palace, a place open to the sky. The winds chilled my body. Goose pimples crept across my arms and thighs and breasts. I carried a silver basin and a basket in which I had placed a silver knife, a silver pin, some tongs, a gray robe, and 3 green apples. I put them down and stood there, unclothed on the tower, humble before the night sky and the wind. Had any man seen me standing there, I would have had his eyes, but there was no one to spy. Clouds scudded across the sky, hiding and uncovering the waning moon. I took the silver knife and slashed my left arm, once, twice, 3 times. The blood dripped into the basin, scarlet seeming black in the moonlight. I added the powder from the vial that hung around my neck. It was a brown dust made of dried herbs and the skin of a particular toad, and from certain other things. It thickened the blood while preventing it from clotting. I took the 3 apples, one by one, and pricked their skins gently with my silver pin. Then I placed the apples in the silver bowl and let them sit there while the tiny flakes of snow fell slowly onto my skin, and onto the apples, and onto the blood. When dawn began to brighten the sky, I covered myself with the gray cloak and took the red apples from the silver bowl, one by one, lifting each into my basket with silver tongs, taking care not to touch it. There was nothing left of my blood or of the brown powder in the silver bowl, nothing save a black residue, like a verdigris on the inside. I buried the bowl in the earth. Then I cast a glamour on the apples, as once, years before, by a bridge I had cast a glamour on myself.